What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Phaithful Phanatics show, streaming to you live here on DSM Media's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter channels. Guys, if you're new to the channel, first and foremost, make sure to check us out on Twitter at DSM_media. Hit that follow button. We greatly appreciate it. And while you're over on the page, make sure to check out the link tree in our bio. It'll take you to every social media platform we are available on. If you guys want to be interactive throughout today's show, the best link to check out is the YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, all of that good stuff. It is the best spot to get your thoughts, comments, and questions pulled up on the screen here with myself, you one half of your host, Dylan Davis. You can find me on Twitter at DylanJD98, and my co-host to my left, sipping a White Claw early on in the morning, my man Scotty. Check him out at Scotty Drown. And this is your new time slot for the Phaithful Phanatics show, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings here at 8 a.m. I know we're a little late to start the first show. For some reason, Scotty, technology does not get along with us 2 minutes prior to when we're supposed to go live here. But on this fun show, man, first and foremost, how are you? First morning show that we're doing together here. But yeah, man, how was your weekend?
Yeah, it was a pretty good weekend aside from the Phillies finish on Sunday, but still, man, Easter was great. Got to spend some time with my family. Not drinking a White Claw. I have to correct you there, just for the people.
I had to clarify that one.
Think that I'm an alcoholic. This is a Celsius, so I'm getting.
I agree, Mark. I agree.
Getting the juice for my day. But yeah, happy Easter Monday, Mark. And obviously, I'm happy to be here, starting our new morning show on the new time slot. We got some big shoes to fill, so
yeah, man.
It should be pretty fun, and I can't wait to get started and kind of get this flowing the way it's supposed to.
Well, let's get right into it. On this first show, we're going to be discussing the Phillies weekend recap. Obviously, they bounce back somewhat and take 2 of 3 against the Cincinnati Reds in their home opener this past weekend. But we're going to get into that. And obviously, the 76ers are playoff bound. They are locked into the 3 seed, taking on the 6-seeded Brooklyn Nets this Saturday at 1 p.m. So the regular season has come to a finish. Most wins since the 2000-2001 season, with 54 for the Sixers team. Joel Embiid has seemed to have locked up that MVP award. So we're going to get into our playoff expectations, confidence level, all that stuff. But before we get to the Sixers, man, let's start with the Phillies. And after a rough 1-5 start, obviously in Texas and in New York, they come home and they bounce back with 2 wins against the Reds to obviously win the series, which is always the goal. That's the first priority. But they had a really great chance and a really big opportunity to kind of instill that confidence and wipe the slate clean from those first 2 series with a win yesterday on Easter. And they looked like a team, again, not ready to play a competitive baseball game. Once again, man, on Sunday afternoon, they blow 2 2-run leads. Yep. They have multiple issues on the base paths with three opportunities, 2 rounding third, coming home. Not sure what Kyle Schwarber is doing rounding first, going to second later on in the game. You had the bullpen and the starting staff in Taijuan Walker walking 9 or 10 batters for the Cincinnati Reds. Obviously, Sir Anthony Dominguez gets the first 2 outs, walks the next 2 batters that really put them in a bad position there in the top of the 9th inning. They had a chance to really turn this season around early on. And again, this is not to take it in a total scale form and say that I'm worried or concerned, because I'm not. They won the series. That's step 1. They're still home against the Marlins for the next 3. But you had a great opportunity and they squandered it to sweep the Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah, I thought yesterday was just a complete opposite of Saturday, right? You saw the Phillies show the resilience on Saturday, hang in there.
Yep.
But on Sunday, you saw the complete opposite. And I think the most concerning thing is the base running, like you said, the mental blunders, right? And I know the one with Marsh, I texted you, I was like, watching the third base coach, and it's like,
yeah, that was on Dusty.
He's giving mixed signals, right? So, like, it's a disconnect all around. It's not even just the players, and I think that's the most concerning thing. A series that you could have easily swept over this weekend, and you just look at the opportunities where they could have added runs. I texted you every single time because it's stuff that makes you want to rip your hair out. The Kyle Schwarber on his way to second, make it make sense, right? Like in that
hauling ass like he's Edmundo Sosa coming around.
And that's the thing. There's so many positives from the weekend, but you end it
Right.
like that on Easter, and it
That's
just leaves a bad taste in your mouth, right? That's the first loss that probably
hurt.
since opening day that hurt, right?
Yeah.
Like you're on opening day, you're up 5-0, and then you blow that lead. But this one probably hurt a little bit even more, right? Because it
You were
happens in
2
the
outs
ninth
away.
inning. You're 2 outs away from getting this W and ending the weekend with a sweep of the Reds. It sucks, man, because like Stott was great this weekend, right? Like you want to like pinpoint the positives, but all I can think about is that blunder yesterday, man.
Marsh in the box has been great. Obviously, pinch
Yeah,
hitting on Saturday, stealing second base, coming around the score. Had a triple yesterday. Obviously, like you said, the blunder with Dusty at third base gets put in a rundown between third and home. Stott, boom, showing off the power, hitting almost a 400-foot home run out to left field. There were lots of positives, man. And again, they won the series, but I think what you hit on, the fact that it was the total opposite of Saturday. And that's what hurts a little bit more, is when you get a victory like they did on Saturday afternoon. That to me, that was my
turning
sign
point.
that their turning point, where now they can put their heads down. They're just going to get to work every day. They were talking about the environment, and Marsh said, the stadium was shaking, and I thought that would get them jump started, right? And you come out and you get an early 2-0 lead. You blow that, boom, hits a bomb. You get another two-run lead, and you kind of just melted that away. That was the most frustrating part. And when I see the mistakes that they've been making, but more specifically yesterday, because man, they just piled it up yesterday. They look like a team that knew they were better than the Cincinnati Reds, and they weren't completely focused.
Yeah.
I don't care who you're playing, if it's the Cincinnati Reds, if it's the Oakland Athletics, or if it's the Tampa Bay Rays right now. You cannot afford in professional sports and in Major League Baseball to give teams outs and give them free passes.
Yep.
When you make 3 major base running errors and mistakes, that it's 3 separate outs on the base pass that you just hand fed them, 2 of which you would have set guys up on third base for a chance to drive in the extra runs you talked about.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, Taijuan Walker in the bullpen walking 9 guys. You saw it bite Craig Kimbrell in the ass in the 8th. You saw it bite Sir Anthony Dominguez in the ass in the 9th to ultimately lose the game. It can't happen. I don't care who you're playing. Yeah. So they definitely need to, I don't know, man. Like I said, they either need to get focused. They either need to get back to the fundamentals. They need to get over this postseason hangover, whatever the hell it is, this mental hurdle, this mental block that this team has on right now. They need to get over it now, because instead of 4-5 heading into a series against Sandy Alcantara tonight, and then Luzardo tomorrow versus Nola, 2 very, very good pitchers, the NL Cy Young from a year ago, you should have been 4-5. Instead, you're 3-6.
Yeah, and now you need at least 2 of these games, right? Like you're trying to get back. Yeah, it was like taking 2 steps forward and then 3 steps back. That's what it felt like, and it was just completely deflating, man. I just, I don't know like how to feel about the Phillies right now, because I was feeling so positive, and then it's just like
I was feeling so positive up until 2 outs to go.
Such a meltdown, right? Like you're about to win your third one in a row. Yeah.
Let me ask you this: would your headspace, would your confidence level, be in a different area right now if they would have just lost yesterday? If they came out after the momentum from Saturday up 2-0 in the series, and the bats never got it going, and I don't know, let's say they lost 3-1, and they didn't blow a 2-run lead in the 9th. Would you just be like, you know what, they lost today, back tomorrow? But instead, in the way that they lost, in the fashion that they lost, it holds a different weight.
Yeah, it just depends, because if they still made the same base running errors,
right,
parts of the game and lost that, I'm still going to be pissed off because of the mental breakdowns that they had.
Correct.
But yeah, in the fashion that they lost, blowing it in the 9th, I mean, that's just, there's something that goes along with that, right? Like you get to that part of the game, this is it, you need 2 outs, and the mental breakdown, right? The Cincinnati Reds were just able to stay more resilient, focused, and able to get what they need in that moment. And I think that is the concerning part, right? But it's also concerning the mental mistakes that they made throughout the game. But no, I think the loss is a loss. I think coming out of that big win on Saturday, I wanted to just see some juice, right? Like, and they did get off to
Yeah.
the hot start, and they did get a lead to build up in this game, and they just couldn't hold on to it. So maybe we're overreacting, but they're 3-6, so it's like, it's an overreaction, but they need as many wins as they can get right now, especially when you're going into the ninth with a lead. So I don't know if it would have made a huge difference, whether it makes a difference. I just don't know how big of a difference it is. It's still a
No,
loss.
I absolutely agree with you. Now they're still in good shape, right? Regardless if it's Sandy tonight, if it's Luzardo tomorrow, whatever the case may be, you are set up in this series with Nola and Wheeler at home against the Marlins team that you are better than.
Yeah,
So take 2 of 3 in this one. I'm not going to ask you for the sweep against a division rival that they've struggled with in previous seasons.
yeah,
Take 2 of 3, and then you head back to Cincinnati for 4 to take on this Reds team, Scotty. So by the end of this week, this Phillies team could be 500, or if not slightly
yeah,
above, right?
yeah,
But you need to start taking care of business and getting honed in and more focused immediately, because yes, while one struggling week and a half is okay, multiple will not be.
yeah.
So it
Building
needs, like,
trends.
this is the cutoff. Yesterday, that you draw the line in the sand. That is the cutoff point where these base running mistakes, these free passes, to the opposing team with all these walks and 2 outs and not getting out of an inning, all of that ends yesterday. Because while this past week, whatever, we can wipe that slate clean,
Yeah,
you add on another week or 2 of this, and you're going to be in a bigger hole than you could have ever imagined
yeah.
to start the season. And that's somewhere not only the Phillies, but their fan base definitely does not want to be, man.
Absolutely not.
When you look at positives,
Yeah,
who has been the biggest positive to you throughout this weekend? Obviously, you mentioned Bryson Stott. He honestly may be the team's best hitter at the moment. Is
yeah.
that a guy that you would consider moving up in the lineup? Obviously, I know he hit 5th yesterday, which is obviously a move up from the day before
Pretty
when he was
high.
in the 8 hole. But would you consider moving him up?
Yeah, man, he's a contact guy, right? And he just always seems to find a way to get the ball in play, and I think that's what you need at the top of that lineup right now with so much inconsistency that we're working with to start the season. He's been that one consistent factor. He's got the most hits on the team. He's 15 of 35, batting average 429 right now. So it's a little crazy right now, but nonetheless, he is playing out of his mind. Obviously, had the game winning hit on Saturday. He's playing with confidence, and I think we saw that in the postseason, like a glimpse of that. Just the way he can work the count and work the plate when he's up to bat. I just think he's shown a lot of stuff that gives me high hopes for him this season, man, because he's off to a really hot start. Aside from him, let's think here, because Turner was pretty cold this weekend. Aside from Friday, I'm trying to think. You know who actually did impress me? Brandon Marsh had his moments, right? He had the base running errors, but he did have his moments batting. But Edmundo Sosa just stepping into spots, man. It comes in, pinch hits in the Saturday game, gets a home run. Like, he always seems to come up with a clutch hit in big moments. He's one of those guys that seems to answer the call. But yeah, I would go with Edmundo Sosa, Bryson Stott. Those are a few guys that kind of impressed me this weekend. What about you?
Well, I think it's incredibly important moving forward for those guys that you mentioned, because notice how you did not mention any of the big names, any of the leaders. So you would assume and expect, as a Phillies fan, that those guys are going to get it together.
Yeah.
And if the back end guys, in a Marsh, in a Sosa, in a Stott, the others, right, as we like to talk about the Sixers, if those guys can continue to elevate their games at the plate, now this lineup's really going to take shape when they fully start playing together, in the coming weeks and months. So I think that was important. I agree with you. I think Bryson Stott's been the best and most consistent hitter. He's been the most confident. He's been the most patient at the plate. That is for damn sure. Sosa's been great. That play at third base yesterday, by the way, has been nuts. And I'll start there with you. I gave some pushback at first once Derek Hall went down, because people immediately said, move Bohm to first and Sosa needs to play every day at third. I wasn't comfortable with it, because I don't love the idea of taking a guy like Bohm, who's already struggled at his position
Moving
and
him
mentally
around.
before, and now you're making him almost an everyday first baseman when that's not your long-term agenda,
Plan.
right?
Yeah.
However, I think it is clearly the best 9 you can throw out there. And I think if you're trying to win ball games when you're in a 3-hole deficit to start the season, it's kind of where you need to go. Sosa needs to be playing at this point. There's Josh Harrison cannot play over him.
Yeah.
Jake Cave cannot play over him. Christian Pache can definitely not be in the 9-hole and not have Edmundo Sosa in the game. Although I know he doubled the other day. I get it. So I think that would be my fix for the moment. If Dombrowski is not on the phones trying to find a replacement, maybe they think Derek Hall comes back a little sooner. I do not know. But the other conversation on social media right now about Bryson Stott, moving him up in the lineup, Scotty, I really don't know if you can move him higher than 5. I don't hate him in the 5-hole, but I don't know where you put him outside of that. He's not leading off for Trey. Trey's your leadoff hitter. He's obviously not batting cleanup. He's not going to bat 3rd.
Right.
The answer would be 2nd. I'm not comfortable with it. I am not taking at-bats and swings out of Kyle Schwarber's hand.
No.
I don't care. I understand he's hitting 140 at the moment. You can't do it. There's a reason. People forget this last year, right? I know the average was down. Kyle Schwarber led the NL in home runs with 46. Do you know why he led the home runs, the NL in home runs, Scotty, but also had a shitty average? Because he saw the most pitches in the Phillies lineup, and he's that dangerous and streaky of a hitter. So I understand the thought. Moving Stott up to 2, drop him back to DH. He's a power hitter. Get guys on in front of him. You are taking at-bats out of this guy's hand, and that is going to make him less valuable in the long run. Those home run and power numbers will go down, and the average is going to stay low. So I don't love that idea. I think the highest you can move Stott is 5. Now, I will say this to you. We talked about this on a pregame show 4 days ago. Rob Thompson needs to figure out what that lineup is.
Yeah.
However, whatever it is, needs to be solidified and locked in on a daily basis almost ASAP. Because you cannot have guys showing up to the ballpark day in and day out and have to look at the lineup card on the wall and not know where they're going to be. Not be comfortable in their role. Stock cannot continue to fluctuate from 5 to 7 to 8. Boehm cannot be 3 to 5 to 7. You need to figure out a consistent order to this lineup because that's what winning teams have. You do not watch a team like the Atlanta. Now, I get it. When there's rest days, when there's rotation pieces at second base, whatever the case is, at the back end, you're going to see some movement here and there every other day or so. Your Scotty, your top 7 need to be locked in.
They need to be the same every single time.
And Brandon Marsh needs to play. By the way, that was made crystal clear on Saturday afternoon. Brandon Marsh, unless he is hurt or very sorely needs a rest day, needs to play every day. Righty, lefty, ambidextrous, I do not give a shit. He needs to play every day and be in that 9-hole or 8-hole for this Phillies lineup. Scotty is frozen. the technical difficulties, ladies and gentlemen, this morning. We were supposed to start at 8 a.m. Couldn't because I have a Bluetooth mouse for my Mac and it decided to disconnect and never reconnect right before showtime. And now Scotty is frozen. So we'll see if we can get him back in here in a moment or so. But yeah, guys, the Phillies had, to kind of wrap up this conversation, the Phillies could have been in my graces right now. The Phillies could have been in such a better position today, April 10th, Monday morning, with just finishing out 2 more outs in yesterday's ballgame. I know it doesn't sound crazy, but the mental side of a player and as a fan of being 4-5 versus 3-6 is pretty drastic right now. It's pretty different because you look at that 4-5 record, you expect them to win the series versus the Marlins. You expect them to probably take 3 out of 4, if not more, in against the Cincinnati Reds. So at that point in time, they would be well over 500 if they were successful in these next 2 series. Now that they lost yesterday, do you hope to be 500 at the end of the week? maybe close to 500 at the end of the week. So that loss does sting. It does hurt, but in a totality scale, in total form for this team right now, I still believe the Phillies are fine. I know there's questions about Rob Thompson. I have not loved what Rob Thompson has done so far on this season, but in terms of yesterday, like that was on the players yesterday. Like running, not listening to Dusty Wathan coming around third base, or Dusty Wathan having a mistake at third base is not on Rob Thompson. Sir Anthony Dominguez gets the nod in the ninth. That is not on Rob Thompson. That was your guy all postseason long last year that you rode on this magic carpet ride with. And he wasn't able to deliver. Gave Kimbrel the setup this time. Kimbrel got 2 quick outs, wasn't able to finish the job with 2 outs. So I think Rob Thompson, if I had to give a criticism, a critique to what he has done so far, like I said, the lineup needs to have a solidified order, at least 1 through 7. Now, Christian Pache does not need to see the field anymore. Anymore. The only thing I would say in a case like yesterday where you had Nick Castellanos out in right field, but again, he had a bat again, I believe, so you don't want Pache in that spot. But if you got into a top of the 9th or bottom of the 9th situation for this Phillies team, maybe you take Schwarber or Castellanos out in right or left field and you let him play the field with his speed and glove. That's the only reason Christian Pache should be in this Phillies, on the field or in this Phillies lineup right now, because he should not see the field or over Brandon Marsh. Brandon Marsh is too good of a hitter. He's proven that already. He's hit off of a lefty already this season. He does not need rest days because he is a sub 250 hitter. Christian Pache is a sub 150 hitter against everybody and anybody. So Topper needs to figure out this lineup. He needs to stop platooning his center fielder. And the bullpen, I thought he has been shaky at times with managing it, but I don't think yesterday was that moment. Now, if you want to argue that these base running mistakes and errors and not being on the same page comes down to leadership, comes down to management, I completely understand. We do that in every other sport. We blame every other head coach, every manager. There he is.
That has never happened before.
No, and apparently it's in the workplace this morning as well. I don't know what's going on.
Well, like all the power in my house went out. That's like,
that's cool.
What happened? So like the router shut off. So then I lost connection to that. I never had that happen, but my bad. Nonetheless,
we're even now in the morning.
What a great morning show! So
yeah, I can't wait to end this broadcast and then really roll the dice on my Mac over here and see if I'm ever going to be able to use this mouse again.
If you can use it again.
Ridiculous. But anyway,
where were we at?
That can wrap up the Phillies portion of the show. Let's get into the Sixers. And I got to ask you, I've been watching Phillies, and obviously with the Sixers resting starters, you kind of knew where they were slotted in postseason form.
Yeah.
Does it feel like the playoffs are here? Does it feel like we have these big, lofty expectations and excitement for the Sixers playoffs here? Is it because we expect them to just get out of the first round automatically and your playoffs don't really start till you get Boston? What is it that doesn't feel like the playoffs are starting?
Yeah, I think it's exactly what you described there. I think at this point with the Sixers, everybody's been talking about it all season, right? And their expectations and what the Sixers need to do to impress them ultimately. And it's getting out of the second round. So I don't think that excitement's going to build up unless something bad happens in the first round, right? If they lose game 1 in Philly, then all of a sudden, then the heat's going to turn up. The intensity is going to turn up.
Years ago versus the Brooklyn Nets, but
yep. So that's the type of thing that would turn the situation up. Maybe it's because we haven't even got past the play-in tournament as well.
Right.
So we'll see how that plays out as well. But I think it's because you're going up against the Brooklyn Nets, and that type of matchup has kind of lost its juice, right? It's not KD, it's not Kyrie, it's Mikal Bridges and Spencer Dinwiddie. And no offense to them, Mikal Bridges has played really well since he got to Brooklyn. He played well in Phoenix as well, but he's been the main guy in Brooklyn, and he's been doing his thing. But they don't have the star power that you need in the playoffs to ultimately scare a top 3 seed in the East. So, I think that's what it comes down to. I think it comes down to the fact that the Sixers, they better make it out of the first round, right? Like you better make it out of the first round, or this thing's getting blown completely up. But the real heat turns on in the second round.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you, man.
He's
I think that's
everything we
kind of where I'm
need,
at.
Philly Eagles fan. He's
Yeah.
everything we need, literally.
If only there was a way we could have got our hands on him a couple years
Oh,
back.
yeah, I know, and if
Um,
only we had somebody related to him within the organization, and yeah, it
if only
sucks.
the guy we traded him for was still in the NBA.
In the NBA or the G League, whatever.
But yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think it's definitely that. I think it's the latter of the fact that there's not a lot of juice heading into this
Yeah,
series. And everybody's eyes and attention are on the Boston Celtics in that second round hump. Um, Again, there's a lot of attention on the Phillies right now as well, and you're watching them on a daily basis. So,
yeah,
obviously, I think once like Friday comes, once Saturday morning hits, we'll be ready to go. I think the whole city will be ready to go.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but let's look at this. Let's look at this regular season, man, because
Yeah,
what a regular season it was, and I don't know if it holds that weight for a lot of Sixer fans. I want to get your thoughts on this. Obviously, you and I had done pregame shows and other podcasts together all season long, and I would say obviously after the slow start, right? They start 0-3, they start 12-12, they were 500 for a while, but right after that, once these guys came back fully healthy and Embiid and Harden and Tyrese Maxey,
yeah,
they really stepped on the gas and never looked back.
yeah.
54 wins, most in a regular season since the 2001 season with AI and that championship
Yeah,
run. Joel has solidified the MVP. I'm pretty sure, knock on wood, right? It seems like
yeah,
it's his for the taking. Back-to-back scoring champ, right? Now
yeah.
you got the narrative starting to turn about what you should classify the scoring champ as. Classic.
Oh my
But
god.
anyway, if you had to put a ribbon on this season, you had to tie.
Yeah.
What was this regular season? How great was it? What does it show you heading into the postseason? Different from previous years. What did this season say to you?
Yeah, I mean this season was great. You hinted at the numbers. You talked about the amount of wins that they've had. So they've done a lot of winning, right? The most winning that we've seen since the '01 season. So that speaks for itself. We have our first potential MVP since what? Allen Iverson,
Since
right?
that
So
season,
like these are the things that we're hitting. These are the achievements that we're hitting in the regular season this year. And what I would say to kind of put a ribbon or a bow tie on it for Sixers fans out there is I hope you enjoyed it, right?
yeah,
Looking back on it, we spent a lot of this season telling people like open your eyes and enjoy what you're watching because this is greatness. I get everything that comes with the Sixers, all that baggage that comes with James Harden, that comes with Doc Rivers, that comes with Joel Embiid at this point, right? We enjoyed it. We decided to put that to the side. Once we get to the second round, that's when we'll face the second round issues. And I think by doing that, we allowed ourselves to witness something great and
right.
ultimately appreciate it. Because you're looking at a lot of these storylines, man. You talk about the most wins since 2001, Embiid's MVP season, Harden bounce back season, right? He looked to form. He's going to make an all-pro team most likely with the numbers that he put up this year. He's got the juice back. You look at Doc Rivers, man, it's something that kind of got swept under the rug this season, but he was all right. Like he was good, right? Like he had his moments, and yeah, like Paul Reed probably should have been the backup center a lot sooner. There's different things that could have played out a little differently, but aside from that, Doc Rivers has done pretty well to lead this team to the most wins since 2001. And it seems like he's got all of the guys on the same
Yeah,
page. Nobody's worried about their own personal statistics. It's all about getting the wins. And I think that's huge. And then another thing, Tyrese Maxey's this is his third season.
mhm.
Another jump, right? Another jump. This man is averaging 20 points per game. Let me see the shooting splits here.
Kind of under the radar.
43% from the three-point line again. I knew it was going to be high. I had to find the number, but 43% from the three-point line again this season, shooting up over 40%. A guy that was talked about can't shoot the basketball.
Yeah,
And then you just look at the additions that Daryl Morey added, and I guess I would throw this to you. And obviously, well, I'll ask this after. Let's
yeah,
hear your thoughts on kind of wrapping this season up, the regular
yeah.
season.
No, I completely agree with you. I want to say that January, you and I kind of made the statement to everybody to appreciate what you're watching and that
Yeah,
this team is good and they're different from previous seasons, whether you want to admit it or
yeah,
not. And I just think that those achievements those baselines, those boxes that they've checked off, as you mentioned, hint at that, right? Like Joel Embiid finally getting over the hump for this MVP award, it seems like, hints at that. The most wins in over 2 decades tells you that, right? So it's funny, man. I'll be honest with you though, Scotty. I don't think a lot of people did. I don't think a lot of people
did either, man.
I think that a lot of people still, in their heart of hearts, believe that Doc Rivers had nothing to do with the 54 wins, but everything to do with the 28 losses. I think that people look at James Harden and what he's did over the last week, whether he's hampered by an injury or not, and now they're already concerned about what James Harden you're going to get in the postseason. You had the narrative change about the scoring title. That's not coming from Sixers fans, but still, it still seems like there's just so much fog and smoke surrounding this team's identity, and I think it should be crystal clear at this point. Now, I agree with you. We need to wait and see what they are second round, and of course, you probably get the worst matchup available. You get the dreaded Boston Celtics, who have been your Achilles heel in the postseasons a handful of times in Joel Embiid's career. You get the Boston Celtics, who you only beat once out of 4 attempts this season. I much rather would have had Milwaukee in the second round. As crazy as that sounds, but we'll see when that time comes. But I'll tell you what, they have a good a chance against the Boston Celtics in this second round than they've had against any opponent in any second round in the past 6 years.
Yeah,
that is the bottom line. Listen, I know it's crazy to say when you think back to the Kawhi shot, and that was the second round and what that Jimmy team did. I've said it all year long. I'll say it again. This team's better than that team.
Yeah.
This team is more complete than that team. Yes, this bench, the back of 5 minutes, they still show flaws in areas and games and moments where it's like, what the hell are they doing without Joel Embiid on the floor? But then there's moments where, isn't it so Sixer-ish to win these last 2 games? Especially the Hawks game.
Yeah, the Hawks game where they're playing their starters.
29-9, right? So I think that there's a lot of smoke and fog surrounding what this team is, and I don't think there should be heading into the postseason. When I look at this Nets series, which obviously we'll break down as the week goes on and we get closer to game 1, I don't think this should go more than 5. This could very well be a sweep, or maybe the Nets steal one on their home court. This should not go past 5 games. Man, I think that's about
the Nets steal one where, and obviously, like you said, we'll get into this later in the week. I do think the Nets steal one. Just maybe, Mikal Bridges goes nuclear, or somebody else goes off in one game and they're able to pull it out. But I don't look at them as like this scary matchup for the Sixers. But I think you're onto it there with the smoke and kind of just seeing through that for this season, man. Let me ask you this. What would you grade the additions, regular season only right now, right? We don't have the postseason experience yet. But PJ Tucker, DeAnthony Melton, Daniel House, Montrezl Harrell, and then Jalen McDaniels. What would you grade those additions? Who were the ones that really impressed you and got you excited for the postseason?
I'll start with the negative. I think the biggest negative was obviously the guy who's not seeing the floor anymore, and that's Trez, right? Because I did have not lofty expectations, but I had some high expectations for what he could be as the backup 5 for this team. Former 6th man of the year a few short years ago under Doc Rivers. Could bring that energy, could bring that grit and toughness, that dog mentality that we thought this team was putting together. He encompassed that. It didn't work out specifically on the defensive end. So he's out of the rotation, obviously, heading into the postseason, unless Doc does something out of this world in the first round.
Better not.
So Trez, I don't know. You can't give it better than a D, right?
Yeah.
Like, there were moments this year he stepped up and, had a spark, but that was it. Jalen McDaniels, obviously, at the deadline, the one move that they made. I think I would give it a B, right? Especially for what you gave up Matisse Thybulle, who clearly his time was up in Philadelphia.
Wasn't getting minutes. His statements,
after he had left, he wasn't comfortable playing here. He did not encompass Philly. And I think McDaniels has played well. I think his 3-point shooting numbers have been better than I thought. He doesn't take a ton off the bench.
Yeah.
I've liked what I've seen out of him athletically and defensively and everything like that. So McDaniels, I'll give a B to. DeAnthony Melton, I know he struggled at times this year. I don't know how you can give it anything less than an A-.
Yeah.
Or an A. Like, I really don't. I know you and I have had conversations about him in the starting role, and there's games where he, scores 2 points, and it's like, what we need more than that. But if you go back to November and early December when this team was brutalized by injuries, he and Shake Milton were the ones to hold down the fort and win a stretch of games and put the Sixers in this position to continue a winning way after Embiid and Harden and all came back. Melton, I think you have to give an A to. Who was the last one? PJ.
Yeah, PJ. And then Daniel House.
Daniel House is such a wild card to me. I'll give it a C just because I think what he's shown in the past couple weeks, he's probably in the playoff rotation, but God, he was out of it for so long. And whether that's his fault or Doc's, he hasn't played a ton in a Sixers uniform. So I'll give it a C. I don't hate it. I don't love it. Yeah. PJ is the most controversial topic.
Yeah, that's the one I've been waiting for.
I hate to break it to you guys. I give it an A. I don't give the contract an A. If you want to argue the money and the age and the 3 years, I'm not going to talk about that right now. I'm going to point out the fact to you that PJ Tucker in the regular season doesn't need to equate to what PJ Tucker can do for this team in the postseason and in the second round. PJ Tucker elevated his game every single time the Sixers went out on the floor against a true contender. Yeah. And that tells me all I need to know about playoff PJ, right? I'm not saying that guys should be tanking in the regular season. I'm not saying guys shouldn't be giving it 100%. But when I see PJ Tucker score 0 points and have 2 rebounds and no assists against the Orlando Magic, and we're all freaking out, what the hell does he do? What does he do for this team? But then I see him play the Boston Celtics. I see him play the Memphis Grizzlies. I see him play the Denver Nuggets or the Milwaukee Bucks. Yeah. And he's hitting multiple threes. And he's shooting 70% from beyond the arc in the corners. And he's getting gritty rebounds and tip outs late in the shot clock and late in the game. That's the PJ Tucker you are going to need in the second round and beyond. And I think for that reason alone, you give it an A as long as he plays like that in the postseason.
Yeah, I agree with you. Obviously, his money's going to be made in the postseason because they're going to be going against tough competition every night. You're not going to have any back-to-backs, right, on his older legs, so you're gonna have some more opportunity there as well for him to have some juice. Yeah, his money's going to be earned once we hit the postseason. He's just getting started here, but I think we saw against the Celtics, right, that last big game that we had in the regular season, where they were able to get the W. It wasn't an easy one. It didn't feel great, but it was a W against the Boston Celtics. And he hits 3 threes from the corners in the fourth quarter, right, to close that game out. And they don't win that game without him hitting those shots. And I think that was just a glimpse of what we will see in the postseason. And whether he makes them or breaks them, right, that will define his time here in Philadelphia, especially for this first season. But I think that's what you're looking at with PJ Tucker. That's what he did against us last year in the second round when he helped Miami close us out. Right. He was able to hit the big shots.
And do you know what's so funny?
Defensive plays,
you know what's so ironic about that? Did you happen to see Jaylen Brown's face in the Boston Celtics bench when he hit those threes late in the game? That was us last season against the Heat, because he does exactly what we just talked about.
Blows your mind.
He will be silent all season, and if you go back and look at his numbers as an opposing fan, you're like, what the hell does this guy do? And then you play him in the second round, and he's annoying as shit. Yeah. And he's a pest on defense, and he's getting a tip out with 30 seconds left for an extra possession, and he hits a late 3 from the corner. That's what he brings to the table. And Scotty, that's all he needs to do.
Yep, that's all.
That is the bottom line. As a role player, as a bench piece, as a fifth option in a starting lineup, surrounded by Joel Embiid and James Harden and Tyrese Maxey. Hell, I'll even include Tobias Harris because he's the fourth option. As one of those other guys, all you need to do is not be a net negative.
Yeah.
That's what you need to take care of the basketball, not pick up dumb fouls, not make dumb mistakes, and not get crushed when when Joel or Harden is off the floor. That's what you need to do. If the Sixers, I promise you this, remember this as we break down this week. If the Sixers bench can just be an even, hell, I'll give you a -2 or 3. The Sixers will get past the second round. because Joel Embiid and the starting lineup are that good. The problems come in when the bench in minimal minutes, because they're only going to play 8 to 10 minutes a night, probably 11 minutes here and there.
Yeah.
They could be a minus 13.
Yeah.
And that's when they get crushed in the postseason and against the Boston Celtics team. So if the others can just be baseline, even slightly below the bar, they will have success this postseason because the starting five and the MVP are that good that they're going to win a majority of the minutes they're on the floor together.
Agreed, man. I think this is the deepest, and I know some people may not agree. I think this is the deepest Sixers roster that we've seen in a while.
How could you not agree? That's
I don't know. There's people out there that still think the bench sucks. I get they have their off nights, but I mean, this is as deep as you can probably get.
100%. If you want to take the Jimmy team and you want to argue fives, you could make the argument that five at that time was better, right?
Yeah.
Ben was Ben then.
Yeah.
Jimmy and James. You had JJ the shooter. Toby was probably a little bit more of a weapon offensively than he is now, right?
Yeah.
If you want to argue fives, maybe I'll give that to you. Who was coming off the bench?
Yeah, that's the question, right?
Mike Scott, James Ennis, Boban, Greg Monroe. Who could do anything off the bench for this team?
Exactly. And I'll tell you right now, Dylan, I'll throw this to you after, but looking at X factors as we go into this postseason, and obviously Embiid, we need to know what he's going to do. The main thing with Embiid, man, he just needs to stay healthy, right? Like, he had a freak accident injury in last postseason, and it kind of just ruined the postseason. And I think people just kind of forget that because it gets jumbled in with the past seasons as well, losing in the second round, and it just gets tallied up as another second round exit. But the truth is, Embiid's face was broken at the end of the first round series. He missed the first, 2 games in that second round season, 2 or 3 games. And you ultimately are not able to stay in that series with the Miami Heat. So just looking at it from that perspective, Harden a little bit healthier, obviously looked like he has some more juice this season. You do want to see something from Harden, right? He has his question marks in the postseason. It's just being honest and keeping it real. But you look past down that, right? Obviously, Maxey in his third year. Can he just keep up the same performance that he showed in the regular season in the postseason? Can he get over that mental hump against the Boston Celtics? That's going to be a conversation once we would get to the second round if we do play the Celtics. But I'm looking at, obviously Tobias, he's here or there. We talked about him, right? We've lowered our expectations with Tobias so much that I can't even call him an X factor, I guess. Like, I guess you can, right? But I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to throw these lofty expectations on him when reality, I just want him to be average. You know what I mean? Don't be a detractor in the postseason. But looking at the X factor of my choice, I think you could go PJ Tucker, but I'm going to go DeAnthony Melton in this one, and I think he's going to be one of the biggest X factors in this post, whether he plays like he's supposed to or not, right? And I think that's going to really show once you get to the second round against a potential team like the Boston Celtics. Which interesting note there, if they end up playing the Miami Heat the first round, it's interesting. I'm not going to say that they're going to lose that series, but that's an interesting first round series for the Boston Celtics. Well, they're a little beat up going into the postseason, right?
Not just beat up. Even if they get past the Miami Heat, they could be beat up from that series alone.
6-game series, right? I could see the Heat getting 2, right? Yeah. Toughing out 2 wins against the Celtics.
Playoff Jimmy's different.
He's different, man.
He is not regular season Jimmy. I'll tell you that, man. But I like your pick with DeAnthony. I think when it comes to DeAnthony Melton, he's going to be coming off the bench in the postseason. Yeah. And you just need him off the bench to give you that athleticism and that defensive ability off the bench and that stopper. But he needs to be a shot maker.
That's the biggest thing, right? You can't have those 0 for 5 nights.
Yeah, he needs to hit, 2 threes, possibly 3 threes a game. I'll stick with 2 as the average. And I don't know, give you 8 or 9 points off the bench, maybe 10. Yeah. There's going to be nights where he's going to give you more than that. But like you said, you cannot have the below the baseline nights from him. You cannot have all 1 for 6 from 3 with 3 points or 4 points in the game.
And I think it's huge against a team like Boston because you're looking at a Boston roster. They have Malcolm Brogdon coming off the bench, and he's going to give them 15 to 18 points a night. Like, that's happening. You know what I mean? We played them in that last game. They had 18 points off the bench. Malcolm Brogdon had 18 points. Like, he's going to win Sixth Man of the Year most likely. So you need somebody to step up, match him to some extent. He's not going to be a Malcolm Brogdon level, but match him to some extent off the bench. And I think D-Melt is that guy.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. For mine, I'm going to give you. Let me start with Tobias. He's not my X factor.
Yeah,
and I do agree with you. I think a few weeks ago, you and I kind of put him on the back burner and just said we don't have really any expectations for him anymore.
Yeah.
With that said, in the term X factor, like unknown, that is what he is. And I think for this team to elevate itself, he is such an unknown because as a fourth option, having the ability to give you 15 plus, 16 plus as a fourth option is scary for opposing teams. You just can't have the 5-point nights. Bottom line. You can't have the 7-point nights from Tobias Harris. My X factor, who I'm going on the opposite end of the spectrum as you, because I love that you went kind of others because you do need the others to step up. But in terms of playing 39 plus minutes, 38 plus minutes, I got to go to the stars. And we're not including Joel Embiid, the MVP. I got to go with the guy that I pointed to in our season preview show months and months ago in October.
Yeah, you've been
saying that is James Harden. I think he is the guy that takes his team to the next atmosphere. That's
what he was brought in for, right?
To the next level. You know what you're getting from Joe. I'm sorry. You just know that. To me, there is not going to be a night in this series where Joel Embiid shoots so poorly and isn't getting to the free throw line where he's not a factor. He might have a poor shooting night. If he has a poor shooting night, he's going to lower his head and he's going to shoot 12 to 15 free throws, right?
And the thing with Joel, that defensive intensity that we see some nights, right? It's very mixed in there against the better teams. That's going to be every single night that we're going to get that effort from Joel.
I agree. So to me, you know what you're getting from him.
Yeah.
James is the guy.
Yeah.
James is the guy because not only is he the conductor of this train, one of the league leaders in assists, averaging double digits, right?
Yeah.
And how great and spectacular he's been all year. The turnovers have to stay down.
Yeah.
The mental mistakes have to stay down.
Yeah.
And he is just such as one of the greatest isolation players of all time, such an X factor in the scoring department, in the 3-point department on any given night, because just on a different level than Tobias, there are nights where James won't shoot the ball a ton.
Yeah.
He won't take more than 3 threes, and he might only have 14 points. That can't happen.
Yeah.
James Harden to me needs to average over 20 in the postseason.
Yeah, I agree. I think he needs to shoot 40% from 3, which he was able to do this season. He's been able to shoot the ball really well. We just have to hope that his legs are still there in the play. I think that's the biggest thing. This guy, Harden, he's been playing defense all year. He's actually been trying on defense. You can see it. So my hope is just that he still has his legs under him in the postseason and can still get up on that shot, right? We saw him working out last night. I believe it was like 5 p.m. in the evening. He's working out in Houston at the Toyota Center, getting some work in. I think he and PJ flew back there together to spend Easter. But nonetheless, he's put in the work in. It looks like he's ready. And to your point, this is what you bring James Harden in for. This is the purpose,
Absolutely.
right? It's not for regular season success. It's not to get the most wins in the regular season since 2001. It's to get you in the postseason to that next level, to help Joel Embiid get to the point where he's lifting up that trophy. And I like your point. I think sometimes you got to look at the stars and call it for what it is. And Harden, unfortunately, is that guy that has the question marks in the postseason, whether it's effort, whether it's mental makeup, and whether it's just disappearing, right? It just can't happen. And I look back to that overtime loss against Chicago. Now, he had the Achilles soreness mark after that, right? So
right. That Harden.
That can't happen. And I get it. I get the injury. the Sixers won't win if that happens. Let me put it that way, right? If he's injured and that happens, the Sixers won't win. If he just doesn't put the effort in, doesn't show up for certain games, especially when you get into that later rounds, right? The second round. If he doesn't show up like he's supposed to, the Sixers aren't going to be able to beat these teams. So to your point, I do agree with you. I would say out of the stars, Harden is the guy that my eyes are on as well. And to your point about Tobias, one other thing about it, this is probably his last season in Philly, if I'm being honest. That contract is movable now as well.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you, man. Before we wrap up this show, I saw that's what I was going to say. You mentioned the stars and whatever, and we were talking about the bench. There was a comment earlier on in the show about Doc handling the bench. And listen, I agree. I think there's moves within the moves, right? Mm-hmm. It's how many deep you go.
Yeah.
It's when you put them in and how long you put them in, and if not doing a 5-man rotation,
that's
a 5-man swap, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it has anything to do with playing the backup 5. I think that stuff is figured out. Yeah. To me, the only thing with Doc is not going 4 or 5 of the starters off at one time, not having Paul Reed, Shake Milton, George Niang, and McDaniels on the floor at the same time, with like Maxey or Tobias, and not doing it from the 3-minute mark of the first quarter to the 7-minute mark of this. Like that's too long of a stretch. It needs to be smaller increments. What I'll say, and give Doc the benefit of the fact, I think people put too much weight on the bench in the postseason. That's why I went with Harden and went with the stars, because DeAnthony Melton's the except. DeAnthony Melton, I think, plays the most minutes off the bench.
Yeah.
But when it comes to James and it comes to Joel and it comes to Tyrese, they're going to play around 40 minutes a night. Yeah. That gives you around 8 to 10 minutes. That's not enough. And you divide that by halves. They're going to play about 4 minutes a half.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's not going to, you know what I mean? Like the stars are what make it up.
Yeah.
The question is, Doc not leaving them out there to dry for 5-minute runs at a time when they're already a -10 on the floor.
Yeah.
Not taking Joel and James and Maxey off the floor at the same time. To me, I'll tell you this right now, and I'll include Tobias. Yeah. We said this in the beginning of the year. He hasn't done it yet. 2 of the 4 need to be on the floor at the same time.
Yeah.
I don't care if you want to take Tobias out at the 6-minute mark of the first quarter.
Yeah.
And then take Harden out at the 5-minute mark, and then put both of them back in for Joel and Maxey at the 1-minute mark. I don't care what you have to do. 2 of the 4 need to be on the floor at all times, because if you don't, you're going to get crucified.
Yeah, I agree, man. And I think specifically when you're looking at the start of the postseason and you're going against the Brooklyn Nets, don't take it easy, right? And I don't think they will. I think that's something that Doc Rivers knows. Once you get to the postseason, it's go time. But don't let the foot off the gas against the Brooklyn Nets, right? If you have a chance to stomp on them and put them down, you do it. But I'm with you. The bench isn't going to mean as much outside of DeAnthony Melton. You're not going to see a bunch of those guys getting consistent minutes. Paul Reed at the backup center. The only time you're going to worry about Paul Reed getting major minutes is if Embiid gets in foul trouble. That's the only thing that is going to, get Paul Reed into the game. And even then, they still might go small ball with PJ Tucker and not put Paul Reed in the game. Like Doc Rivers, once he gets to the postseason, he doesn't lean on those young guys as much as you would like sometimes, in a sense. But I think in this sense, it's a good thing as we get closer to the postseason. But yeah, I think Doc Rivers, I get it, the coaching decisions. But like you said, as long as you're not doing those hockey shift type of moves, I think you're going to be fine with this.
As long as Dwayne Dedmon isn't getting back up 5 run.
Let me ask you this, and this is very early into the Brooklyn Nets analyzation. We'll obviously talk about it later in the week. Where would you cut your rotation off against even the Brooklyn Nets, right? And maybe it gets cut off a little bit shorter against the Boston Celtics. But say Jalen McDaniels is that 7th or 8th guy, right, in the rotation. Do you cut him out or do you cut it off right after? You know what I mean? How are you looking at that? Because Nets have a lot of athletic forwards is what I'm getting at.
McDaniels to me is playing in every series. I think he is an athletic wing that you need that can shoot from beyond the arc. He brings, like I said, that athleticism and speed, brings some defense and rebounding to a team that sorely needs it, especially when you're talking about, you mentioned the wings and the long bodies for Brooklyn. You're going to have the same thing with Boston. You could have the same thing with Milwaukee. I think McDaniels is almost a lock to play every series. He should be.
Yeah.
To me, I'm running 4, and Shake is my 5th, dependent on what I need.
Yeah.
I am running, obviously, you have B-Ball Paul at your backup 5. Niang, Melton, and McDaniels are my 4.
Yeah.
Shake is as needed as my 5, whether that's foul trouble, injury, maybe Melton comes off first and doesn't have it, and I need scoring off the bench because it's a close game. Shake. But I don't see a need when you're talking James Harden and Tyrese Maxey both playing 40-plus minutes a night, and then you have DeAnthony Melton. I don't see a need for Shake Milton to play double-digit 8 or 10 minutes a night. I don't see it. I don't know, and I don't think it's also fair to Shake to give him like 4 minutes. Like I you know what I mean? So
just come in and feel awkward, right?
But I'll be honest with you, I have a gut feeling, at least in the first round, I have a gut feeling Shake gets the nod in the first round from Doc.
Interesting.
10 is the max.
Well
I can promise you 10's the max.
Yeah.
No further than that, Doc.
And I think, I guess the way I would look at it with Niang and even Daniel House, I doubt Daniel House
I didn't even include House.
Minutes.
Damn.
Gets many minutes, right? But I think those are the two guys that you would switch either or. Maybe throw Niang out there, see if he can hit 2 or 3 threes.
I completely forgot about House.
First couple shots. But I think House is like a more athletic, lesser shooting version, right? Like he's not as good of a shooter as Niang, but a more athletic option. So you may see a little bit of him mixed in there.
I am with you, man. Guys, that is going to wrap up this Monday episode of the Phaithful Phanatics show here on DSM Media. We will be back with you Wednesday. Stay tuned on our Twitter at DSM_media. Kai Carlin, Sixers beat writer, might be joining us at 8:15 on Wednesday to break down this upcoming playoffs for the Sixers and this first round matchup versus the Brooklyn Nets. Scott, I will be live later on for the DSM pregame live, Phillies, Marlins. I believe Scotty will be with me as well, but that'll be a decision that Scotty will make later on.
We'll see how it works. As long as I'm good from work, I'll be there, but I'm pretty sure I'll be there, man.
Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the DSM YouTube channel to catch all of our DSM pregame lives for the Sixers postseason run and for the remainder of the Philadelphia Phillies 2023 season. Guys, I'm one half of your host, Dylan Davis. You can find me on Twitter at DylanJD98. To my right, Scotty. You can find him on Twitter at Scotty Drown. Have a great rest of your Monday and ring that bell.
Happy Monday. Ring the bell.